in Columbia. So I'm still in contact with her as I have questions, but I do want to introduce the team that I'm working with from the office. Charmaine Clark, which I think you're all familiar with, Dolly Heron, which I know you're all
Dolly who?
familiar with.
Dolly who? I have to get used
You'll
to that
notice on emails.
name.
And then Dolores Chabez, and she must have stepped out, but she's also part of the management team of the department that I'm working pretty closely with. We also have Aisha Driggers, who's director of OBO, and the two department works closely together, and a lot of their activities relate to how we impact our community. So she will attend these meetings and the Economic Development Committee meetings as well. So the position is posted. So, and Dolores just walked in. So Dolores Chavez is part of the management team that's working pretty closely with me. I'm toggling both offices right now. So I'm down in community development a good bit as well, but also working out of this office until we fill the position. So the position is posted. We've created a brochure that's in draft form, so hope to finalize it this week, and it's really for a widespread outreach effort to see who will apply for the position. We will also promote the position with various associations and partner agencies that are listed on the screen to try, again, to cast a widespread net and get applicants that may not otherwise know about it, if not for using those organizations.
Just as a technical point, it's Municipal Association of South Carolina, MASC.
We will correct that in the future, okay?
Thank you, Mr. Duvall.
Not that I noticed.
You had something to do with that, yes. All right. Yep.
And so if we had a timeline, what would that timeline look like?
As soon as possible, but we want the right candidate as well. We will come back and report monthly as these meetings occur. I would think several months, but again, if we get the right applicant sooner, I'm anxious. I know the team's anxious, and I think Ms. Wilson is also looking forward to filling the position.
Did some of the priorities that came out of our work sessions with council and vision sessions, was that kind of, is that included in the posting of kind of duties and what we would like to see in that role?
So our job descriptions are pretty broad. As we looked at it, we intended to make some tweaks, but it really didn't need tweaks. I mean, it's a very broad description and covers the gamut. But as we're working on the brochure, we will be deliberate in talking about the city's vision and some of the focus areas that we'd like to achieve.
Do you think that it's unreasonable to have it filled before the new budget year starts,
No,
July 1?
I would hope not. I'm toggling the two offices and the management team being patient with me, and everybody's pulling double duty, so I know we all would like to have it filled as quickly as possible. But again, we want the right candidate as well.
Okay. And as far as functioning, we're still able to do everything that we've been doing before.
We are. We are keeping track. Fortunately, we're approaching a time that DR should wrap up. There'll be a lot of closeout activities, but as far as rehabilitation and reconstruction, we should be wrapping that up. The last house should be finished by the end of April, which we're all excited about. And that'll take a big load off. Again, there will be a lot of closeout activities, so it doesn't mean it's over, but having construction complete will certainly be a welcome change. Okay. So yeah, we're keeping up. We're working together, and everybody's doing their part.
All right. Well, thank you. Next, we have Community Development Month. And I think, is that the same thing? I think I put Fair Housing Month. Is that kind of the same thing?
So we have Community Development Week, which is, and Charmaine, you want to come up here? And Dolores and Gloria, Dolores and Dolly, y'all are welcome to as well. There's Community Development Week, which is April 10th through the 14th. There's also National Fair Housing Month, which is in April, and National Financial Literacy Month in April. So we've created a draft agenda for activities throughout that month based on some activities that have taken place in prior years, as well as some other conversation. So you want to talk about, Charmaine, what we have here?
Yes, well, we have a draft agenda for, a calendar for CD Week, National Fair Housing Month, as well as National Financial Literacy Month. So we are in the process of creating proclamations for National Community Development Week, as well as the Fair Housing and Financial Literacy Month, which we do every year. We are in talks with possibly creating a video highlighting some of the projects that were funded with Community Development, CDBG, block grants, as well as doing a segment on some of the people that were able to secure housing, affordable housing, through our loan program. We're also talking about doing a day of service. These are some of the things that we have in place that we are talking about doing, since we work closely with the Food Share Committee, possibly doing like a food drive or something of that nature, possibly through Harvest Hope, as well as doing something with collaboration with the Upworth Children's Center.
Now, I
So
have a
these are-
question. The day of service recommendations, this is what we're recommending to the community that they do?
No, these are something that we are talking amongst staff.
Okay.
And then we'll pick one or two possibly day of service to do. So these are just some of the things that we highlighted that we are talking amongst staff.
And y'all have
And
time
we
to
really
do
want
that?
y'all's feedback.
Yes, just a day, but, yeah. Okay.
Okay, we'll continue to go through.
Also, we're talking about doing for the month, doing a home buying workshop as well as a financial workshop, just to highlight that's what the Fair Housing and Financial Literacy Month. So we're gonna do some workshops, possibly April the 20th at Busby Street from 6 to 8, and as that time approaches, we'll be giving out more information on that. Every month, starting from April to October, we do the community improvement projects where we collaborate with David Hatcher, Group Code Enforcement, as well as Public Works, and they come and do a clean sweep within a neighborhood for the entire week. So I'm in the process of putting that list together. I know Councilman Brennan contacted me a few months ago about adding Forest Hills to that group, so we will do that this year as well. And also,
If you're taking nominations, at some point, Belmont community, if
Okay,
they can
Belmont?
be added.
Okay. Uh-huh. Yeah, our first one is gonna be in April. Mm-hmm.
Clean sweep.
Spring cleanup?
Is this around April the 5th? Okay. Okay. Okay, and the reason why I asked, because I did have a meeting with Columbia International University a few months ago, RAM serve, and I think it's around April the 5th. Okay. That's what it is. Okay.
There's good examples out there, Ms. Wilson. Raleigh does a Service Raleigh, which they do a big clean sweep of the whole city, that we might want to look to for that. I completely support that initiative. I think it'd be great for Columbia.
Okay. And those are some of the events and things that we have planned for the month in Community Development Week.
So I want to specifically talk about, so this is the cross-section of Affordable Housing Task Force and Community Development, but one of the big things that we wanted to do, and I've discussed with the mayor too, is a campaign during this month
Okay.
about the face of affordable housing. And I think we talked about it maybe in our housing meeting, but putting together a video of sorts.
Yeah, we talked.
I prefer shorter one, like 45 seconds. But what we're realizing is as developments are coming, We are trying to find ways to approach not in my backyard. And as, you know, housing prices continue to increase, you know, I tell folks affordable means a whole lot of different things to some people. You know, we want our college graduates to be able to afford, you know, a place to stay, whether they want to rent or purchase. And so out of that group came the development of a campaign of sorts. Now, I've never put together a campaign, so I'm going to look into some of those options. But the other part too is we have people over there who can assist. I just need to know how to pull those pieces together, because we have two people. I think it's Miss Bean and someone else, but there's like a committee specifically to work on the campaign. We just need to figure out how to get them together. Is it Sue?
And we intended, after this discussion, we've got the Community Development Week video as well as the Faces of Affordable Housing. We've got a segment, but we'll change that to campaign. We need to get with our Public Relations Department and identify the path forward for any work we're gonna do, probably using a consultant, but we'll reach out to Ms. Bean and Sue to see if they can be part of a discussion of how to move that forward.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. I mean, really, I think what we've discussed is something real simple, and it can be done different ways. It can be short segments of various people in various stages of life who are looking for affordable housing, people who have been through affordable housing, but and then maybe one longer video. But I think it's important to have the mayor, like one where we're talking about the mayor basically explaining how important affordable housing is. So we have to lead that discussion. Yes, sir.
Is the new term attainable? Is attainable the same thing as affordable?
I don't get into all of those definitions because it confuses people.
So we interchange those words a little bit. There's a defined HUD definition of affordable. There's such a bad connotation by some community members.
Yeah.
We use attainable a lot. It's honestly, we've talked a lot about the faces of, it's our firemen, our police officers, our teachers,
Exactly.
our public works workers. I mean, it's a
But that-
large portion of our
Yeah.
employee base, and people fail to recognize who affordable is describing. So we really want to.
Well, I think, but that is the exact point of the campaign, to show people the faces of people who really need affordable housing so that they don't automatically have that negative connotation when they hear it. And that's what I usually tell people. I want people who work for the city of Columbia to be able to live in the city of Columbia and not have to come from Kalamazoo. I'm sorry.
I think layering in the school district as well would be a good idea. The faces of our teaching professionals.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
Forced
our
to move
teachers and
further and
teacher
further out.
assistants. So as many, clips that we can have of various people in various stages of life, I think would be helpful, and we can just kind of blast it out different ways. But I think it's also important to make sure we get leadership involved, and so that they understand. It is a constant struggle in District 1, but we need affordable housing. But again, that's the whole point, is changing how we see and think about affordable housing.
The next item on the agenda will be a discussion about what's going on with the development corporations. And as most of you, or actually all three of y'all will remember from different roles you played, there was a decision prior to COVID to reorganize how we funded development corporations. It was important to recognize that while we could not restructure them ourselves outright, we could certainly change the funding stream by which they were funded. So our decision was to consolidate, and instead of funding 5 different corporations, we would fund 2. One would be a residential focused corporation and one would be commercial. I do point out that both of those can include multifamily, so there would be some collaboration among them as well on some larger projects. The intent was to enhance collaboration not only among those two organizations, but with the City of Columbia proper, and more efficient use of city funds to help support. We're in the process. COVID slowed us down. There were a lot of slowdowns. It's taken a little bit longer, actually a lot longer than it should have. We're in the final stages of the merger between CHDC and TNDC. That should be completed on March 6th from a legal standpoint. There'll be some tidying up of assets and deeds and all of that following that date, but we're approaching completion of that merger. So they will form the residential corporation. There's members of both boards will form the new board, is the intent.
Is it going to have a new name?
Right now, the name is TNDC. That doesn't mean they may not change it. As they looked at the structure of both organizations, TNDC is more stable. TNDC will be the surviving corporation. They will likely then change their name once the merger happens. And the new name may end up being CHDC, but for reasons of financial stability, it was important that TNDC is the surviving corporation. Again, probably with a future name change. I thought they would be here. I'm not sure. Yeah, I communicated effectively.
Yeah.
And those two corporations have always worked under the direction of one director. So it's not changing a lot about their day-to-day operations from a staff standpoint. It's just changing the legal entity that exists.
Felicia's doing the commercial side.
She's doing CEZ. So CEZ is the commercial arm, and they will remain CEZ. So
Can we please consider something other than Columbia Housing Development Corporation, not to confuse it with Columbia Housing Association as we move forward with?
we can. That is really their decision, but we can
Right.
certainly guide that decision.
Because I don't know if in the past it's caused confusion.
It has.
So something to consider.
It has, yeah. So, yeah, we can certainly do that. So and then CDC decided, that was Columbia Development Corporation, they decided to become independent, and that was totally their right, and they did not want to be part of the reorganization. So they're an independent entity now. So the last corporation is Eau Claire Development Corporation.
They took assets that they had developed during their terms out with them.
They did. Corporations own their assets. The city of
Okay.
Columbia does not. So when they decided to become independent, the properties they owned and their assets belonged to them.
Okay.
So the last corporation that we will need to work with is Eau Claire Development Corporation. We're in the process of doing that. We've performed title searches on their properties. They've passed a resolution to acknowledge that this is going on. That board has not been active in quite a while, so we'll need to reconvene the board because they'll have to take some votes to actually effectuate. They'll be dissolving, and they'll be dividing their assets into the commercial and the residential corporations. So that should be complete by the end of this fiscal year, hopefully sooner, but we're working with an attorney on that right now.
And the Eau Claire Development Corp property, is that mostly residential?
It's mostly residential. There's 3 commercial properties that will go to CEZ, and everything else is residential that will roll to the new residential corporation. As we were casting the vision for that restructuring, there was a lot of concern from different boards and different members of our community about the lack of focus that would take place on North Columbia, and that is far from true. All of these corporations have always functioned in North Columbia. They own properties in North Columbia. Their board members they've had board members representing North Columbia. So certainly we have stressed the importance of representing the entire city, but they understand the concern that existed in North Columbia, and there's been nothing lost during this process for our North Columbia community.
Lots gained.
Right.
And I think that to North Columbia, they were reassured last week that we're on top of
Thank you.
the North Main Corridor. And as far as economic development, and because I had gotten that question, people wanted us to come speak on how do we plan on handling that.
Is this, I mean, I haven't done this in the past, I don't know if other council members have, but I guess giving kind of the development corporations sort of a vision of what we would like to see on the kind of, let's just use Rosewood as an example, vacant buildings, giving them kind of a, hey, why don't you go check this out to see if you can make something of it? Is that within reason that we as council members can engage our development corporations to do?
We can, there's limited resources, so many times the projects they undertake, they're gonna need some funding source to help with, and that's been some of the challenges in the past. They do own their own properties, so they have income outside of the city's funds that we provide, but they're in the
Short-term
affordable
loans,
housing
stuff like that is stuff
business.
that we've done in the past.
We have, mainly with CEZ, I don't.
Right,
think
and these are all,
that-
I'm just thinking commercial. Okay,
Yeah, limited funds, but yes, we can certainly have that conversation with them.
okay.
I think my overall concern would just be to make sure, to the extent possible, that the development corps in the city are working towards the same vision, because previously, I have not felt that way. The development corp wanted to, and we've had situations where we just didn't agree. So I do think that, and I think I've said this before, if we pay their salaries, I think we need to have some input. And if we don't have any input, then when they're separate, I have no problems with it. But that is just Tina Herbert talking. I'm making sure I'm clear about that. But I do think that if they're development corps for us, that we should be working together towards what the development corps are trying to do. That's just my 2 cents that I'll throw in. And I don't know what efforts have been without being overreaching. But I just feel like, and it kind of goes back to the discussion we had with community development, and making sure community development is in line with what city council is talking about. I just want us to make more efforts in that area.
Absolutely, and I do think the restructuring will, it lends itself to that being better received and a little bit more collaborative.
It does, but the difference between community development and our autonomy there to give direction literally is community development is a city department proper funded in part by the general fund. Right.
Mm-hmm.
These are different balance sheets with different boards of directors, so that whole hybrid is from legal standpoint, because I agree with you, but when we get our pull back a little bit, it's legal saying, hold on, Right. we can go but so far. So I do think the structure will help with that, like you said, but I would caution, and Jefferson here, you can speak more to the, I mean, we just get down to the bottom line of audit and, what component units, which is what they're considered to be.
Right.
And I well, yeah, and I remember when they had problems with council members being too involved and almost taking over the boards. And none of us would do that. But I do think that over the years, what I have seen is that we're working in two different directions. And that's just Tina Herbert. I don't think that's acceptable to work in two different directions.
And I don't think that's going on right now. I mean, CEZ's an example. The state funds that came to the city for the Atlas Bluff project, CEZ's taken that project on, because we asked them to. I mean, it's a great project. I think it's good for them as a corporation. But we went to them and said, is this something you'd be interested in? And they never hesitated. So there's example after example as we move to the discussion about the residential lots. As Ms. Wilson just said, we can't tell them what to do. So we've got to remember that when we move to this next discussion. And while I've got a list of lots that city owns some, so we can do anything we want to with those within the limitations of the funding source that we acquired them with. But the corporation-owned lots, we can't do that independent of the corporation. So we'll talk about that in just a second. And that's important to remember.
Who appoints the board members for the corporation?
They self-appoint, so city does not do that either. And again, that structure's there deliberately for a reason,
And our legal has a check and balance to make sure all their policies, procedures, everything is in place, that
they have, our legal does not represent them either. I mean, again, independent counsel, they have
They
their
have
own
independent
attorneys, they are arm's length, we fund part of their operations. Which is a really weird, I mean, if you're the director of a corporation, you've got this board very independent of the city, still should hear our vision and listen to us, but you're also reporting up as an employee to the hierarchy of the city. It's a unique position to be in.
Well, I have no doubt that we can work well together.
So the next conversation, we'll be talking about residential lots, and I don't have we'll go through two separate lists shortly, but there are a lot of residential lots that are vacant that have been owned either by the city and or by the corporations for some time. We have, in the last year, had lots of conversation, actually prior to that even, but the last year specifically, conversations about how to create new affordable housing homes on those lots. So we're in the process of doing that. We have worked with the corporations, mainly CHDC, because they own the majority of those residential vacant lots. We've released an RFP a few months ago for very targeted communities and lots. We received a response to that, and we're in conversations with that respondent. We released another RFP on Monday for two other communities, and our communities right now are Booker Washington Heights, Belmont, and then the King Street area, crossing over to a little bit of MLK. And those are using lots that, again, either the city or the corporations own. When we decide to proceed for those lots the corporations owns, it's not a City of Columbia or City Council action. It'll be a board action by the corporation. So we will work with them in a collaborative manner. And they're aware, we've talked to the boards, they're aware this is going on and they're supportive. The request from the builders will likely be the land gets donated. So I think the city is going to have to make a strong position that that's our request of the board as well. So we'll be having those conversations shortly.
Do you have any numbers on how many lots and how many owned by the city and how many owned by the
Well,
corporation?
so the next two sheets, these are city-owned lots, city proper, related to CDBG activities. I'm not gonna tell you this is all-inclusive of all city residential properties, but these are related. So two of these, the King Street property and the Cherry Street property, are included in those RFPs. King Street, you may remember, was 3 duplexes, I believe, we bought a few years ago with CDBG money. We've demoed the duplexes, and the intent is for new homes to go back on those lots. So that's included in the RFP, as well as Cherry Street. And then the next list, which I know is hard to read from the distance, these are lots owned by the corporation. So all of the lots in Belmont will be included, and there's probably 30 that are in Belmont. And then the lots in Booker Washington Heights, I believe there's 6 lots that are corporation-owned. So we're excited about what that means, about the possibility of putting new homes. It is going to be very critical that the city's affordable home loan program remain intact, because in order to make these homes available, we're going to need that resource. Commercial lenders are going to have a harder time making loans that remain affordable, if not for our partnership. So that's one thing we are hearing from the respondents is they're asking that we go ahead and get some people pre-qualified in the pipeline, so when the house is ready, there can be people ready to move in. So we're working through that conversation as well.
So will the ones that are owned by the corporation still they will use the affordable home loans that the city makes?
They will. I mean, we'll pre-screen. Well, I don't want to tell all the steps of the process, but we'll pre-screen and pre-approve, hopefully, as many as possible, so that they stand ready. And if our home loans, I mean, you don't have to be on a city-owned property to use our home loan program. As a matter of fact, if you know anybody looking for an affordable home, I welcome their names, because we would love to get some folks pre-screened. We will work with Columbia Housing Authority, with Richland One, and our own employee base to promote those opportunities.
It's 30 years. Mm-hmm.
Elmwood Park, so we just have to really tread lightly about going down a path of, just wholesale doing away with a program like that. And I mean, it's a great program. I think that there have been discussions with, amongst maybe some of your colleagues about who benefits from it and that sort of thing. So we went back and looked, and Missy, I think y'all have made some soft recommendations and maybe even, one of the programs, if you want to see.
We've put a ceiling on the amount of the price point of the homes, and Dolores, you don't have to help me with that if you can. But instead, I would not be able to go to the city and get a home loan. It would have to be within that affordable housing component. In the past, we've had employee loan programs that were above that affordable housing bracket. So we did add a ceiling to that. So you want to speak to that?
Well, would the city-owned lots stay in CDBG and the corporation-owned stay under the corporations, or are our lots going to the corporation?
Our lots are not going to the corporation. The intent is that those will be made available for these new homes, and they will be sold as part of the effort to create new home ownership.
You know what the total of those two pages are?
Total, I don't, the total number?
I'll count them up.
Absolutely. So just the Belmont community, again, there's 20 to 30 lots in there. Now, I will tell you that these lots aren't sitting vacant for no reason. I mean, these are some of our most distressed areas and distressed communities, and they're going to have to be affordable homes, and we're going to get creative on who wants to live there. Specifically, I've talked to one of our consultants about the Booker Washington Heights community. It'd be great to have a police officer in that community. When these new homes are built, I think that would make a big difference to have that presence. But no, once the homes are built and the loans are made, these lots will no longer be City of Columbia or corporation. They will be privately owned, which means that's taxable revenue too for the government. Do you want to talk a little bit about the home loan program?
Okay, so, well, the restructure, we eliminated the employee loan, but we've expanded where, employees can use the City Lender 1 or the City Lender 2. Also during that transition.
Now, explain both of
Okay.
those.
So the City Lender 1 is specifically for applicants that are 80% below the area median income, and those income limits are set by HUD. They change every year. So anybody that's 80% or below, they can use our City Lender 1 or our Affordable Home Loan Program. So the difference between those two, the City Lender 1, our partner lender holds 80% of the mortgage, and we hold 20% to keep it a conventional loan, with no PMI, which helps with the mortgage costs being more affordable. And then the affordable loan program, we hold 100% of the mortgage, and we do that at a 3% interest rate to also help with affordability of the mortgage loan.
And is
Talk
that,
a
is
little
there
bit
a
about-
range for that
For,
eligibility
it's 80%
for both of them?
for both of them. 80% are below the area and median income levels.
Talk about the folks who use our loan programs as far as what would happen if our programs didn't exist.
Okay, well, one example we have in the pipeline, two gentlemen, they've lived in a home, they've rented it for 5 years, and the owner reached out to us because they don't have what we call traditional credit. They don't have credit cards, they don't have any type of credit, but they pay their rent, they pay their bills on time. They're good and responsible with their money, and the owner wants to sell them the home. If they go to a traditional lender, it would be very difficult for them to get a loan. So they can use our affordable loan program, where we could use non-traditional ways to check their credit and make sure that they can afford to purchase this home. So when we think about the interest rates, which are very high now, that takes away from what you can be approved for, the amount, so it's harder to find homes. Also, the credit criteria. Most traditional creditors, you have to have a 640 or better. Our program, you have to have a 600 credit score. But we do pull the credit, we do look at it, and anybody that may need some credit counseling, we're able to work with our partner lender or nonprofit Operation Hope to help them get the counseling they need so that they could be in a position to be mortgage ready to purchase a home. So that's an example of why our programs are important and how it can help, people that just don't have those traditional means of getting approved through a traditional lender.
Where does the appraisal fall in that process? Making sure that they are purchasing a home at a correct market value.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so that's part of the process that we
Yes.
take on?
We do appraisals, and we do inspections. They have to meet certain HUD required guidelines, no chip and peel and paint. And we do require, a termite letter where they have to do the inspection and say there's no damage. It affords us the ability, if there are repairs that need to be done, we can require those repairs to be done before they purchase the home.
Are we using a pool of money that's, we get from HUD or from other
Yes.
federal things? And it's our pool of money that's used to make these loans, or are we just backing a loan that's made by a traditional bank?
Yes,
Both? It's revolving?
yes, both of our, so we do use the CDBG funds for our City Lender 1 and Affordable Home Loan. City Lender 2, which you can have a higher income bracket, 81% up to 120, again, of that area median income. You can use the City Lender 2, and there's more higher down payment and the price point of the home. I believe the maximum is $275. With City Lender 2, it's set up where we hold 20% of the mortgage, the partner lender holds 80%. Now, that is the general loan, revolving loan fund, and that's how City Lender 2 is funded.
Is there any restriction on, let's say you have a young person, young police officer or something that wants to buy a home, and we do the loan through one of those programs, and then he gets promoted up to captain and major and chief, that's all right?
Yes. Yes.
It's just the purchase.
Time of the purchase. Now, we do require that while you own the home and use the loan, that it stays as your primary residence. You can't rent, lease, or sell the property. If you sell it, you pay off the remainder of your loan.
And
So
then if
definitely
you
great
could too, for lay people, 80% of AMI for maybe like two people, what's a range of what that is, that number is? I'm
About
not saying
50,
that right. Number-
maybe $54,000 a year,
Okay.
approximately. One person is about 45.
And so when we're looking at 120 of AMI
Um,
for one person,
It goes up a little bit, maybe 60.
well, and
A
the
lot of
reason,
people in Richland County would qualify for that.
Yes,
Absolutely.
definitely.
And that's the whole point, yeah.
What affordable housing.
right, and that's the point I'm making, because people automatically assume when they hear affordable housing that people have no jobs. And we have a ton of jobs. I think the average pay in South Carolina is 25,000, so.
They're working class people.
Are there limits to this program? I mean, can we do as many mortgages as we want to via this?
As long as we have funding.
Yeah, funding limitations.
Right, so that's my question. So if we go out and we do this marketing campaign and we get, 100 essential workforce responses, of those 100, how many can we do?
I believe we set up to do like 20 a year.
20 a year.
Is it 20? About 20 a year. And of course, we always want to use one pool of money before we use another pool of money. And that first pool of money we need to meet timeliness with is the CDBG fund.
So what is that? What is that 20% coverage number amount wise?
It depends on the amount of the loan.
Right, so let's say it's a $200,000 loan.
So we pay 20%, so I think that maybe.
And that's
around-
cash out, cash to?
No, they pay a mortgage on our 20%.
Okay.
Yes, they pay
We
a
spend
mortgage
the
on.
40,000 though,
And
but
then
it
we
is
do it about
40,000
a
that goes out.
4%. We used to do 1% below the partner lender's interest rate.
Mm-hmm.
But when rates went up to like 6%, and then we were doing a 5%, the last one we did, I think it was a little over $200,000. That brought his payment up to at least like $600 on ours. He ended up with about a $1,500 mortgage payment. So we went down to just a flat 4% on our 20%, so it can keep it at least under $100 or $120
Right.
a month.
I guess the reason for me asking is that I think there's avenues for philanthropy here through, if it's a school district foundation. I think that's the type of story that people would want to donate to create those housing options.
They would donate to the pool of money that we have available.
And some of the effort as we release these RFPs and we're looking at really focused effort on certain neighborhoods, we've talked about, can we provide extra assistance for down payment? I know the consultant's working with the state housing to see if they too can bring some money to the table for down payment assistance.
I would.
We're looking
encourage-
under a lot of rocks.
Yeah, look at
Yeah.
District 2 Foundation. I don't think District 1 has a foundation up and running, but great way for corporations to donate and make a true change. Mhm.
Your question, Mr. Brennan, where the pool gets low during the year, and we have people
And that fund has predominantly been used to help assist multifamily projects with grant applications. And if all three projects were committed to proceed forward, that fund is currently committed. One of which we're in the process of actually doing the loan for. So the other two, again, there's a commitment there, but they have not started pursuing that.
But if there's a campaign
And we would keep those funds separate because they wouldn't have the same restrictions or obligations as the funds that originated or are coming through CDBG or other HUD-related funds. So we would operate the same type of programs, but again, we decide which fund to use based on the criteria the applicant meets and HUD.
Was there an avenue for those, a donation to be made that would be tax deductible? Or is that?
We need to talk with legal and figure that out.
Okay.
Right now, there's not today. If you brought us a check today, I mean, we'll figure it out, but no, that has not been an effort.
We'll figure it
underway. Yeah.
Well, and I wanted to say too, one of the reasons that this program has been so successful is because, number one, we have a mortgage. And if folks don't pay, then we get the house back, but that it replenishes itself with the payments that come back. So that's why it's been able to be around 30, 35 years. I did want to I had a question for Missy going back to developing the vacant property and using the consultants, because I think at some point we thought the Development Corps could really handle all of that, but are we moving to a model where we start doing the RFPs to get the properties developed? Because we have torn down a lot, and now it's time to, do we have a strategy for that, or do we need, is that a part of what we need to come up with?
The decision to do RFPs, I think it was recognizing how long these lots have sat vacant. And while the corporations want to build on them, again, there's limited
Finance.
funding. So right now, the RFPs that are on the street, the builders will build these houses on their dollars. What they need from us is probably a lot donated, taps provided, and they need pre-approved applicants ready to buy the homes when they're ready. So there's a lot of upfront costs that will not be needed by city or corporations if this model proceeds forward. And it looks like it's going to be successful in the first neighborhood. So I've had conversations with one of the corporations recently, and they still would like to also do some of this on their own. They just have limited resources, and builders are standing ready to help. So I think it's a good opportunity maybe to find the hybrid of maybe they'll do some on their own, but they also make their lots available. Does it mean they give them all away? Probably not. Maybe there's some middle ground, because the corporations, again, they're independent and they get to make their own decision about whether they donate them or not. But they have been vacant for quite some time. So, and they've got some expenses associated with those vacant lots, cutting the grass and keeping them maintained. And so there's a lot of justification.
We don't treat them any differently via code.
No, absolutely not. Not actually our own properties. Every now and then, Teresa might get a letter about one of our own properties, which she doesn't appreciate, obviously. But no, our corporations get code violations as well.
Don't appreciate that.
The violation
might
is
have
this.
had
Right.
hadn't paid attention. I
Right.
appreciate the letter, but
Yes, yeah. It's never good when she
No,
gets one
that's
saying we hadn't cut the grass.
All right, so Miss Missy, does that mean we have completed, we were talking about in the Economic and Community Development Committee, 5-year real estate plan? Are we almost done with the residential inventory side, do you think?
I think so. I mean, and I made a note that those properties listed that are CDBG or city-owned through CDBG avenues, there are some additional properties that the city owns. One which comes to mind, which Councilman Brennan is involved in, Saluda Avenue. We bought that through, because of a drainage problem that we had. So it's now time to sell that property. It's past time to sell that property. We've got some other scattered lots like that for reasons of utility work or some other reason outside of CDBG, we may own some lots. So we can add those to a list as well. This list was created via a conversation about community development and what they were working on and what they owned.
Y'all have any other questions?
No, what's next? What's the next action item from this conversation about our list of properties we own.
Got the RFPs out, so.
Yeah, I think we get responses to the RFPs, and for the city-owned lots, city would have to take action on that. For the corporations, the city will have to, make a request of the corporations, which I will make a recommendation to y'all of what that request should be.
Well, and I think too, it's more about having a strategy, like, you know, maybe if all of them are in a particular area, and we want to have a big impact in a particular area, I do think we have to have a strategy on how we do it. And so maybe we would want some recommendations, and I'll put some thought into it as well. But because we don't want to act like we're trying to sell everything off and get everything developed next year. But I do think we need to have a reasonable approach and then have something to really be able to discuss with the development corps. You know, to have that discussion on what their strategy may be, or could they develop a strategy? I like giving people input and ownership.
And the intent with these RFPs is we're going to hire a builder per area, not 5 builders in the same area. I mean, we really want somebody to be a partner with us and the corporation at creating something for our neighborhood, so.
And so we're anticipating 3 different builders.
We are.
Okay. Now, I was making sure one builder wouldn't be doing them all.
We anticipate 3 separate.
All right, so can we put that as a part of our follow-up? Thank you, Mr. Brennan, to just ask the Development Corps, since they have the majority of them, if they put any thought into a strategy of infill, particularly for properties that have been held over for a while. I don't know how long we've had Randall, those 20 years?
At least.
Yeah, I mean, I think I would put an emphasis on things that we've had for a really long time and coming up with a strategy.
And again, that's a distressed area. We've also talked about the community development manages the SHINE program. Y'all may remember it as the MAP program. We've rebranded it and changed some of the criteria because the old MAP was, I think, a $20,000 cap. The SHINE program's $50,000. We may also layer that on some of these communities with a targeted focus. Limited funds there too. That's another opportunity, Councilman Brennan, if we were to try to take donations, helping folks make major repairs on their homes in areas that we're also building new homes in. You know, building the new is good, but there's some existing homes that also need a lot of work.
Yeah.
And we will do as much as our funds will let us do, but they are limited. And y'all feel free to speak up on that too.
One general question while we're talking about community development and community development month. Do we have any collection of data that shows how much money has come in through community development? How many programs, something that we can build on for some PR?
We do. And we've talked a lot about the need for some positive stories coming out of all
Yeah.
of the good work that's going on. It's been a hard year or two with
Yeah.
one of the programs in particular, but it's time to celebrate. And we have, I think there'll be a key turnover this week of a new home that's been constructed, which is really exciting. So over the coming weeks, we will start having more and more of those key turnovers for new construction. I mean, we've had them for rehabilitations already. But yes, it's past time to celebrate all of the good work going on.
And I'm sorry, I had to go back to the Community Development Week and just wanted to confirm that we are going to be doing a community development home buying and financial workshop, because I had someone to approach me, and I'll follow up with you, Ms. Wilson, but I had someone to approach me to see if we would donate some money towards an organization having one, but we are doing it ourselves.
We typically do those ourselves. Do y'all want to talk about it?
So we don't,
You got to come up to the mic.
that helps with this answer.
Yes, we usually do our All Access Columbia events where we do credit counseling, financial literacy, home buying workshops, things of that nature to promote our affordable housing loan programs. So we wanted to do that this month, the month of April, because of Fair Housing and Financial Literacy Month. So we have that scheduled for April the 20th.
And do they go to different locations? Or how do we do
Well,
that?
the past ones, we've done them at Busby Street because of the location, the parking, of course, and the space. But we are in talks of doing something with the employees as well. We're going to be going to different departments. We're going to schedule that to talk about the affordable housing loan programs, targeting police, fire, public works, things of that nature. So we also talked about that as well.
Sounds good.
All right.
That helps me with that. All right, and the last thing, you have 4 minutes.
Well,
Mr.
yes,
Brennan.
will not take up much time. We got to get to the municipal association. In general, I wanted to bring this up. It's kind of good timing over in District 3 with the growth of the university campus as it gets closer and closer to neighborhood borders. The unintended, hopefully, consequences of growth into our neighborhoods and our city, because Columbia is such a destination for higher education. We are lucky to have so many higher ed options here in the municipality: Allen Benedict, CIU, Columbia College, Lutheran Seminary, Midlands Tech, USC. So I think, we've talked about a town and gown association, working group in the past, and the town and gown in general is a collective of higher ed participants and neighborhood participants driven by city leadership to come together and talk about just general quality of life issues, how we can foster the best quality of life for citizens and students. Because at the end of the day, I think we all agree on council, and I know Mayor Rickman does, retaining the talent that comes through our higher ed pipelines could do so much for this city. So with that, the discussion, I just want to put it out there and move it forward, come back with something better to present at the next community development. But the participants, what's the advisory board look like? Howard and I participated with the executive director of the International Town and Gown Association, which, funny enough, is just right up the street in Clemson. They provided a lot of wonderful structural information for us. We are an association member. I did not know that until the call, so.
Long-standing association member.
Yeah, we are. Yeah, I didn't know that when I talked to Beth, and she said, well, that's the reason I called you back. It's because you're a member of the association. I said, okay, well, fantastic. Thought it was just special. But anyways, what the structure of that looks like, the higher ed participants, the neighborhood participants, University Hills, Waverly, Hollywood, Rose Hill, Hyatt Park, Keenan Terrace, city staff participation, and then, Mayor Rickman makes a wonderful recommendation of business leaders as well. So I guess the overall drive is to come up with a mission statement and then have goals that we can start looking at. Because of the growth of the university around the neighborhoods, USC ambassadors program is something that's being talked about. And that's a way to engage with students that live in the neighborhoods to make them feel welcomed, more community oriented.
Now,
So
the ambassadors, is that something USC is doing, or
That
something
is-
that Town and Gown would do?
that would be, and I think this is a great place for the ambassadors program to come from, the recommendations from the Town and Gown, because it's something that could be mirrored with, Allen, Benedict, all the other surrounding
Columbia
areas.
College, right?
Columbia College. So I think that would be one of the short order goals once we put this together. And I would, I would push for late spring to bring this together. Campus Village, the university 2,000-bed facility, will be up and running in August. So you can see we are on the flight path to that pretty quickly. But in general, I'm just putting it out there. I'll work with the mayor's office, with fellow council members to bring together, and staff, obviously, to really realize what that structure should look like, and if there's any expenses to be incurred for that. USC has stated that they want to participate, not only with their faculty and their leadership, but also financially with that. So look forward to learning more as we move this forward. But I guess today's conversation is just to make sure that this committee would like to spend some more time on it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Now, the only requirement that I would have is when I was an ambassador, I had a nice blue blazer with the emblem on it.
Mm-hmm.
They would need to have that.
Yeah.
Were y'all ever ambassadors and you had the
I think
nice?
we pay that membership
jacket.
through the planning department's budget, if I
Mm-hmm.
remember right. Because as the staff person transitioned, we had talked about it landing with planning. I had been involved in the past.
Right,
but
well,
not-
we just put Shanique's name down for now, from our call, so.
Perfect, because she has nothing going on.
Yes.
That's exactly.
And we can move it once we decide working order.
I would just throw out for your thought process and kind of the history and the. So when we, back in the olden days, I always say, there was this thought process with the governmental affairs department. It was governmental affairs and community relations. So there's certain things that were a natural fit for that department. And that was when we originally started going back, trying to, amplify the town and gown relationship, was sort of natural fit for me because I was
You
coming
just
from
came
the
out of it.
university, and the university at that time was also putting a focus on it. But as with everything, when staff comes and goes and positions change at the university as well, then there's been a period of time where there was no interest. I think we still maintain the membership. I think even after I stopped in that role, we tried to have staff trying to be involved with it for as much as they could.
Absolutely.
So, I think it's exactly the right move. I think as you all are contemplating what we do with the legislative affairs or governmental affairs, that I believe the thought process is that person would go back to doing some of those things I used to do long ago, going to the county council and working with the university and the different related entities. That's probably a natural fit from that function to also
Mm-hmm.
who are supporting that director if we end up with, if we land with that.
Okay, great.
They recommended a smaller structure at first
Yeah.
and then grow it out.
Mm-hmm.
Because we talked about the number of universities we have in Columbia. Putting them all together initially, I think, would dilute the efforts to get.
And I think the
started
mayor
right.
has a working group of students from all these universities, which could be a great fit to participate. All right,
Well, thank you, Mr. Brennan. Anybody else have anything else?
Move we adjourn.
Thank you, Mr. Howard, Mr. Duvall, and Mr. Brennan.